The Secretary of Defense goes secretly missing. Is it a Netflix plot or the latest DC craziness?
Oh, I'd watch that.
This is Not My Party. Brought to you by the Bulwark. Okay, y'all, we are days away from voting starting in the Republican primary, and this will be the best spot on Snap to get your analysis.
Politics, politics.
But before we go all elephant all the time, I want to update you on the latest jackassery from the other side.
Drama.
So I've been pleasantly surprised by much of what's come out of the Biden administration, but his cabinet has had a few clunkers. And the latest, almost too crazy to believe news comes from the behavior of his defense secretary.
He's acting weird.
On New Year's Day, Lloyd Austin was hospitalized due to complications from a medical procedure. He was in the hospital for 3 days, and nobody knew. Not the press, not President Biden, not even his national security team.
He's very low profile.
Former Obama Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel explained the obvious problem. The president has to know where his cabinet members are at all times. Now, maybe that's not true for, say, Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack.
Are you into farming?
But in the Defense Department, with multiple wars going on? Yeah, here's one example. The Iran-backed Houthi rebels have been engaged in attacks on U.S. interests for a few months now. On January 4th, while Austin was in the hospital, one of their drone boats detonated on the Red Sea and whiffed on hitting anything besides the fishies.
Nice try, loser.
But imagine if they were successful. What if they took out a boat that had a bunch of Americans on it? And then, when the president's national security team gets together to plan a response, they find out that there's no Secretary of Defense. Seems suboptimal.
You really dropped the ball.
This is not the first issue with Secretary Austin, whose nomination was controversial from the start. Traditionally, the Secretary of Defense has been a civilian job because there are optical and practical concerns with having retired generals in charge of the department. When Trump appointed Mad Dog Mattis, it required Congress to override a law that had barred recently retired generals from taking this post. And then Biden followed that up by doing the same thing with Secretary Austin, who's a former 4-star general. Not great.
Is this the new normal?
Then there also was the Afghanistan Withdrawal, which might have been well-intentioned, but was atrociously executed under Austin's watch. And the fact that Biden didn't make any changes to his military leadership after that catastrophe is probably one of the worst mistakes of his presidency. So when you add this recent screw-up, I find myself agreeing with Republicans in Congress who are calling for Austin to get the boot.
It's time for you to go.
Now, we haven't spent a bunch of time analyzing the Biden cabinet on this show, so I figured we'd end this episode with some Not My Party toots and boots for the best and worst Biden cabinet officials. Toots! Secretary of State Anthony Blinken. World leaders respect us again, and Blinken is navigating a dicey Israel-Palestine situation pretty deftly. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. The supply chain crisis, mostly fixed. Flight cancellations, fewest in a decade. And Fox News hosts, slayed.
Boot edge edge.
How would you handle the insults and the attacks and the tweets and all of that?
The tweets, I don't care.
Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. All hail our inflation-slaying queen. And my sleeper pick, EPA Administrator Michael Regan. We've had good policy for addressing climate change without some of the craziest lefty stuff.
Good job, team.
Boots. Along with Lloyd Austin, we have a couple other nominees. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. Now, the Republicans are going a little overboard and threatening to impeach him for, they can't even say what exactly.
Shocking.
But despite the fact that I think some of the criticisms of Biden on immigration are overblown, there's no doubt that the border situation has deteriorated and the administration's front man has struggled to handle the heat. And Health and Human Services Secretary Javier Becerra. He's faced some scandals, and even Biden administration officials have complained that he wasn't up for the job of handling the pandemic fallout.
We're looking for new management.
All right, guys, next week I'll be coming at you from the MSNBC studios with results from the Iowa caucuses. We'll see you back here right then.